You're listening to Zap Night, a video game review podcast. Join your hosts as we review video games from all systems and all genres. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Zap Night. I'm your host, Danny. Today we have Don again with us. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me back.
Did you have some fun playing some Resident Evil?
I always have fun playing Resident Evil. Although I was reflecting, and I don't know if I had to go back and look this up because I don't remember, but the last time I was on, the only other time I was on, was 2 years ago.
Man, has it been that long already?
It's been 2 years, according to the YouTube date of the video you uploaded, right? For Super Mario 64, episode 16. And you hadn't played that game prior either, so it seems like it's a pattern. Like,
I try not to play games that I've played before because it's more interesting for me.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it happens sometimes where I've played, especially I'm replaying all the Final Fantasy games, so it's like it's all new, but I do like playing like Resident Evil. It's this huge hit of a game,
Absolutely.
But I've never experienced it.
Yep.
So to find somebody else who really enjoys it and wants to play it and then wants to talk about it, that's what I'm looking for. So it was a good fit.
Yeah, super happy to be here. It's when I found out you hadn't played the game before, I was like, you gotta throw it in. Like, It's just one of those it's in my favorite of all time for sure. Definitely
awesome.
Enjoy going back even now.
Yeah, I did struggle a little bit with it.
I saw.
I mean, it's an old game. Yeah. I streamed the whole thing from beginning to end, and there was some moments of struggle.
Expected,
to say the least.
Yeah, and I had warned you, going in, like, controls can be a bit weird, and like there's a learning curve, and I will get into it more, but yeah, no, for sure. You had all the same struggles I had when I played originally back in the day.
Right.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the game a little bit. Resident Evil 1, developed by Capcom. It was originally released on the PlayStation in 1996, but it was also released on Windows in 96/97 because it took some time to be pushed to the States. And then it was also released on the Sega Saturn. Then it was remade and re-released several times since then.
Yeah, I actually looked it up today. That particular game has been remade 8 times. So you'll get into huge debates over what the definitive edition of Resident Evil 1 is, and that's a story we want to avoid. That's
right.
That's a deep rabbit hole.
I found it interesting that they made it for the Nintendo DS. That's really bizarre.
Have you ever seen any of the screenshots?
I haven't.
Oh, do yourself a favor, go look it up, and then go, yeah, I'm not playing that. Like, if you struggled with the PlayStation edition, trying to play it on a Game Boy or a handheld, like,
yeah.
And there's some people out there who think that the handheld editions were really, really good, and I'm assuming they are. I've never played those.
I have noticed that they integrated some of the like touch features and because it's the DS, they have like the touch screen.
Yeah.
So it's like you can do like a knife fight like demo or something. I don't know. It's really bizarre.
You might have a little bit better time picking up objects or,
Right.
working with puzzles, through that type of interface. I could see where that would lend itself to.
Right.
Yeah.
But then they had an HD like remaster. They called it a remaster, but it really was a complete remake of the game that came out on the GameCube in 2002, and I did dabble with that a little bit in the time that I've played. So let's try and talk about the story. I mean, there's not a whole lot to it, and that was kind of my downfall of the game.
Sure.
So it kind of starts off with Raccoon City noticing that there are people who are dying, and it seems to be that they are being eaten by other humans, some sort of cannibalistic group. And so they send a Special Tactics and Rescue Service STARS to investigate. And the STARS, the Bravo team STARS, they go missing while searching for this group.
Correct.
Or whatever, while investigating what's going on. And so they send in an alpha team. And that's where we kind of pick up the story, is the alpha team drops down in the woods. They get attacked by some crazy dogs.
Yeah.
And they flee to a nearby mansion.
For safety.
Right.
Yeah.
So once they're in the mansion, they can't leave because the dogs are outside. So they have no choice but to investigate the mansion and try and find a way through a back door or make their way out. Now, they were dropped off by a helicopter, so the obvious plan is to be rescued by the helicopter. So as they're going through the mansion and as they're doing an investigation, they're finding, you know, bits of blood on the ground, leading to these monsters that we know them as zombies. But it's funny how these zombie games and movies, they don't refer to them as zombies.
No.
They're just like, they're monsters.
Yep.
But you slowly find out that these monsters are infected, or they have some mutation that is transforming humans into these monsters.
Correct.
And it's not even just humans. It's animals and it's plants and whatever. They're just doing... It's as you go along, you're finding out that it's experimentation.
Correct.
So they are, you know, using different chemicals to experiment on humans. And the further you go, the more information you get, which isn't a whole lot. Bits and pieces here and there by scribbles left on desks from
files
employees
that you're reading,
or scientists or other people that are in the building. You find out that, yes, they are experimenting on humans and animals and plants and everything. They are employed by a umbrella corporation. And
The umbrella. Yes.
And the corporation is specifically building a super soldier.
That's correct.
And they succeeded in building the super soldier, but at the consequence of infecting all of their employees to the point where I believe they have to flee the facility. And this is kind of speculation. They don't really say what's going on. It's just this abandoned building. But, you know, they have to leave, leaving all of these zombies behind. And so as the STARS team is trying to figure out what's going on, they're finding the remnants of what the Umbrella Corporation has left behind.
Yep.
So you eventually make it to the lab where they have the bioweapon stored, and you find out that the bioweapon is a mutated super soldier that they call Tyrant.
Yep.
And good old Barry. Yeah, did you play as Jill?
Yeah, I always play as Jill.
Okay.
I started out back in the day playing as Chris and didn't realize that, you know...
Jill's so much easier.
Well, yeah, and they don't tell you that, right? So it's pretty cool. Yeah. It's another aspect of the game that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later, but, you know, you get the choice right out of the gate as playing as male or female, and I normally take the female characters. I don't know why, I just do. But yeah, if you play as Chris... You get less inventory slots, so there's a lot more inventory management that you have to handle on your own. You don't start out the game with a gun at all. You're only given a knife. So you're doing a lot of up-close fighting, and, you know, you're not shooting things from a distance. He can take more
damage, though, can he?
He's a little bit brutal like that, but he doesn't get the lockpick, which, you know, Jill uses for most of the adventure to get, you know, indoors until she can start to find keys. He doesn't get the bazooka, or AKA the grenade launcher at all.
Right.
So it becomes a little bit more problematic. He does find the Colt, you know, later on in the game, which is a super powerful handgun, which really helps. But, you know, you do have a tougher go of it playing as him. And again, if you've not played before, and I know you haven't, but the storylines are different. So the character interactions between, you know, Barry and Wesker and, you know, Jill, like, it's just a different take on... The game's going to be, I would say, probably 85 to 90% the same, but there will be different things if you go back and you play as Chris where you're like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't, you know...
Right.
Who is this? Like, there's an entire character that you really don't see if
Rebecca?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen her name floating around.
Yeah, you're probably like, who's this Rebecca?
No idea.
So if you play as Chris, you meet Rebecca within, like, the first 5 minutes
sure.
of the game, right? So Rebecca is, like, Chris's shadow character, Where for Jill, Barry was his shadow character.
Right. Okay.
So it's they, each of the characters have two different like avenues that they can play through the game. So there's like they call it an A line or a B line. And depending on your, choices of how you solve puzzles and how you maneuver through the game, like your character will progress.
Right.
Your side character may die. Leaving you with an alternate ending.
Yeah, so I did look at that, and they have 4 different endings.
Yep.
So if your bonus character dies, that's one ending.
Correct.
If your bonus character lives, that's an ending.
Yep.
If you save the alternate character, so in my case, I could save Chris, then that's a different ending.
Yep.
And then there's also a different ending if you save Chris without your +1 character.
Correct.
So it's like there's 4 different endings depending on who, how you
I'd have to go look up the specifics of it, but there's files that you can find throughout the game too that you read. They're just text documents that give you information, and it's kind of how you unveil most of the story.
Right.
I believe, don't hold me to this, but I believe you have to have all of the files in order to get like the super cool, like awesome bonus ending at the very end. And from what I saw, you did, like, you were very thorough in your gameplay. You got the wicked cool ending that I never, like, even this playthrough didn't get it. Like, I wasn't going through all of that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, and it's kind of cool. I don't know that the game has replay value to the point where I'd replay it just to see all the endings. Go YouTube that, and, they're really not that different. But, yeah, you have to save your alternate character, and, so there's differences in the storylines.
Yeah, and that's what makes it fun, too, is that, all these different endings changes... going into it, I can look that up and be like, okay, there's a best ending, or there's a bad ending, or there's an alternate bad ending, or there's a not so good ending.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, obviously I want to go for the best ending.
Sure.
And then you start talking, like, I had some people in the chat with me who, while I was streaming, and they were like, yeah, go save Chris, go figure out how you got to save Chris.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, I need passcodes, and I need to figure out how to use the discs, and,
Yep.
Once you start figuring that out, it's like, okay, I know what I need to do. I know where to do it. I just need to figure out where everything is at.
Correct.
So, it definitely adds to the value of the game, for sure. Now, in the meantime, while all this is going down, Wesker, who is part of the Alpha Stars team, you find out that he's kind of been leading the Stars team from Umbrella's point of view. He's working as a double agent. So the ultimate goal was to, from the notes that I could find,
Yep.
It seemed to me that the ultimate goal was to lure the Stars team in to help suppress the outbreak and then nuke it and blow it up.
You're close. So Bravo team went in as kind of an experiment in regards to how the monsters, if you will, would handle real world fighting scenarios. So they're attempting to collect data using you as a human to see how they will hold up in mercenary type of battles. Bravo team didn't make it. So they send us in to kind of mop up after Bravo team. And yeah, to your point, Wesker's a bit of a D-bag.
Yeah.
He's not a good guy, but you don't know that till the very end.
And you don't really even see him. Like, you see him maybe 2 cutscenes.
No,
maybe.
But when they do show up, they're crucial cutscenes because they're letting us know something's not right. It could be, in Jill's line, there's a time period there where you're like, is it Barry that's not the good guy? Like, is it the guy that I'm working with that I got to be worried about? Or is it someone else? Like, we come across characters in the game that we didn't know came in with us that give us, some storyline, like, I can't remember their names, but like, Leonardo, or he's half dead and talking to you, and you're what? Who's this? Like, oh, he's on our team and he died, right?
That was Enrico.
Yeah, there you go, Enrico. Yes. So there's those little things, and you start to kind of piece it together, but you definitely have that kind of euphoria of something's not right, but I don't know what's not right, and you're trying to figure it out.
Right, and what's interesting about this too is if you don't hunt down your story, you're not going to get a whole lot.
No.
like, if you're not reading all the text documents that you pick up, if you're not reading all of the diaries and all the bits and pieces, you're not going to get a whole lot of story here.
Nope.
So as long as you're being diligent and you're looking for the story, you're going to find something. But, you know, you do kind of have to dig a little bit for it.
The game kind of forces that, though, because to solve the puzzles and to advance, you're pretty much kind of going through and clicking on everything that you can find. And that's how you inadvertently step across, you know, these files and these documents. And no, to your point, if you're not reading them, you know, and this happened to me, you know, 30 years ago when I played, like, I'm lost. And we didn't have the internet and YouTube and like, we could call like
word of mouth.
1-800-SONY to try to get some help. But like, you're talking to your buddies and you're like, I'm stuck in the mansion, and, you know, it's like, well, go back and read file, you know, X. And you're like, what? So you got to go back in your inventory screen. You go and you read it, and you're like, oh, man. Like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to do with that. Like, if I'd have read that when I picked it up 3 days ago, like, I'd have been so much better off.
Right.
But I didn't. And so it does kind of force it to kind of, but in a, I would say, rather unintending fashion. Like, it doesn't feel forced when you're playing it, meaning, you know, you don't feel like you have to go find a file to advance. You can just kind of meander around and do what you want to do. But there are some points where you're just like, okay, I'm kind of confused, and you're in the same rooms and kind of running around. But then you finally you get
right.
it.
Yeah, you get there eventually.
Yeah.
In reading, my ending was the perfect or best ending, I think.
Yep.
So basically, I saved everybody that I could possibly save. I escaped and killed Tyrant. But there are the bad endings where Tyrant gets to flee the facility and roams the forest.
Yep.
So I don't know how that, you know, I don't know if I'm curious to know in like the sequels or whatever, if those like play in, like which ending is canon. Like, I don't really know.
So yeah, you're getting into really deep weeds. But no, I'll help you out a little bit. So for example, like at the end of the first one, Wesker dies, right? Wesker's not dead.
Well,
so
he didn't die in the first one, not for me.
It depends on which character you're playing as.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
In Chris's ending, he dies.
Okay.
He gets shot. Oh, no, he doesn't get shot. I take that back. When, all right, so you're correct. Let me digress. When you're playing, it's you and Barry that go in to check out Tyrant. And you were actually saying, all right, Barry, don't touch the computer, Barry. Don't touch it. Barry, you're not listening to me, Barry. He's walking over. He's going to do it, right? And I'm like, I'm laughing the whole time because I know it's coming. So in Chris's story, it's Chris and Wesker that go in.
Oh, okay.
And when Wesker releases Tyrant kills Wesker. So, but he doesn't kill Wesker. Wesker shows up in the lineage much further down in the other games, and he's, you know, and we know in, you know, the other games, Wesker's, you know, not a good guy.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, like they've kind of taken some liberties with that. Like, as they've made the other games in the series, it's like, well, did that character die or didn't they? Could we do a flashback scene and kind of maybe, you know, mop that up a little bit and bring that character back? Because, you know, each of the characters has their own unique storyline, their own approach. You know, you get into the other games, you're not playing as the same characters anymore. You know, you're still stars, you're still with, you know, Raccoon City. Like, it's familiar, but it's different character lines, different stories. So,
sure, yeah.
Yeah, that whole, like, Resident Evil lineage of stitching everything together and what happened when, and, you know, like Resident Evil 0 that you started with a GameCube. That's, you know, you know.
Well, I didn't play 0.
You started out with the remastered.
Of
okay.
1. Yeah,
so they came out with
same as 1.
Yep. You're right. So yeah, they came out with the Resident Evil 0 that predated, you know, to give us two different characters. That's Rebecca, and I can't remember the other guy's name off the top of my head, but yeah, so it's similar story but different characters with different twists, and they've taken a lot of liberties though. So yeah, it all stitches together, but to your point, not tight enough to where people aren't like, hey, wait a minute, you know, at the end of the first one, Wesker died, why is he here?
Right.
Like, because they don't explain it, he just shows up again. You're like, what? So there's some of that, you know, they've taken creative liberties with. But
sure.
Yeah. No, the whole storyline and the lineage of Resident Evil started here with this game. And they've built, you know, an entire franchise of, you know.
They've been doing it for 30 years.
Absolutely.
Almost.
They've not always been successful with it, too, I will add.
Right.
There's been some games that, have been crap in a box with the Resident Evil name that still sell millions of units that leave people rather unhappy. But I would say, overall, as a huge Resident Evil fan, 95+% of the time, they're getting it right.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what did you end up giving it for a story?
I gave it 10 out of 10.
Did you?
I did.
Jeez,
And
ouch.
I knew that was going to be harsh when I was watching your video. But again, you got to remember, for me, I've played all of the other games.
Yeah, sure.
So this is where it all starts, right? So we're getting really good character development. We're starting to meet who these people are. And in this particular game, there's a lot of plot twists. You've got a lot of different things that, like I said earlier, who's the bad guy? What's going on? Why are these dogs rabid? Okay, are these really people? Or are these zombies? Or, all right, now they are in fact. There's just enough twists and turns and story that you're playing through that, for me, I don't think there's anything with the story itself that could have been, any better. I don't know how they could have done it any better than the way they did. You're going to have a different take. But
I very different take. Yeah. So I give it a 5.
Oh, okay. Well, you admitted right out of the gate that story was a little hard for you.
Going into it, I was expecting just more of it, more story. And when you walk into the mansion and you get, granted the voice acting is what it is, but it's you get very little story. You barely know who you are. You barely know why you're there. Mm-hmm. And then you start walking through and you're, just getting just glimpses of what's actually going on.
Correct.
And I feel like that they could have added a few more cutscenes to help, for Jill to start realizing, oh my gosh, this is what's going on. Oh my God, that revelation within the characters themselves instead of just me being like, oh, that's what's going on.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think there just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough tangible story. There was a lot of hidden bits and pieces, but I think that it could have just been played out a little bit better.
Yeah, if you're comparing it to, let's say, future releases of even a Final Fantasy, those games had way more cutscenes with way more storyline, way more so it absolutely could have been done that way. And if you play, some of the other games with 2 and 3 and, even 4, that starts to come, right? So this was them trying to develop, that genre and kind of getting their feet wet. And, there were some mistakes made for sure.
I feel like that they wanted to have this deep story. And I feel like they intentionally added these holes in the story of, well, who knows what Umbrella is and what they're really doing. And you got to find out sort of thing. Yep. And I just was kind of left with this what's going on?
I'm with you.
And that's a good thing for a game that is known to be a franchise. So now, if I play Resident Evil 2, I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to get more of that. And I'm going to figure out who Umbrella really is and who's on what side and what's really going on.
Yep.
But as the game stands by itself, by the end of the game, I'm still just like,
yep,
I made it alive.
That makes sense. So yeah, it could be my brain stitching together what I already know from all of the other games to say, But yeah, for me, this is kind of the father of the genre and where it starts. So yeah, I ranked it high. I did.
So let's get into graphics.
Yeah.
I give it an 8.
Okay. I landed at a 7.
Okay.
So we're pretty close there. Yeah. I had talked to you about that before we started. This one's the hard one for me to kind of pinpoint down because, admittedly, when you asked me to review it, I was like, absolutely. And then it took me 2 days to try to figure out how to get my PlayStation hooked up to my new flat screen TV.
Ouch. Yeah.
I'm like, technical anticipation that I was not thinking of, right? So it literally was me in the corner of my bedroom with a small TV, going old school, because I originally thought I'll use my PlayStation Classic, but I don't have cordless controllers. So then I'd have been sitting on the foot. It just was not. So I had some hurdles technically to get it done, but I was able to make it happen. Graphically, it doesn't hold up, to what we're used to today.
No,
but
nothing does PlayStation era.
No, the characters and the polygons, and it was really kind of our first foray at actually, for me anyway, controlling a human being in a game. And I can remember back in the day, like even now going back, I'm like, all right, this is pretty rough. But it was smooth then, like for us to actually be able to, walk around inside of a mansion and it to actually be textured walls and not flat sprite graphics. And, they really were trying to push the envelope for the era that it was in.
The backgrounds looked really good.
Yeah.
And even the cutscenes, I call them cutscenes, but that's loose. Like the animation, for example, you're out in the garden and you open the gate and all the water drops out and you have this like clip of the water like flowing out through the gate that you just opened, and that looks awesome. I mean, that's like top-notch graphics for that time.
Absolutely.
And I'm seeing that and I can appreciate that again. And we kind of talked thinking about it from 1996. Final Fantasy VII came out in 1997, and they were aiming for, like, the best of the best. Obviously, they didn't nail it. But, like, this game, all the characters have some kind of facial features. They all have, good body textures. They have good, body features.
Yep.
They even have the, like, small animations of, Jill will put her hand on her hip when she's bored or, kind of sway a little bit. And that's just, it looks really good. It's really well done considering the time frame. Like, yeah, they can do it really well now.
Yep.
But for 96, this is awesome. This is really good.
Yeah, and CD based, so for the first time too, and we'll get that in the categories coming down a little later, but you've got characters that are actually giving you audio dialogue back. You're not having to read everything on screen.
Right.
Although that wasn't done the best either, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Preview of what's to come.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, no, I mean, like I can remember playing back, and it would have been 96. I wasn't an early adopter. I had actually played Resident Evil 2 before I played 1. I had to go back because I liked 2 so well. But yeah, like it was really cool being able to like listen to characters talk to one another and not have to read anything on screen anymore.
Very new.
Right? So, tying that in with the graphics, competing directly against the likes of Nintendo, who was the big dog in the day, like it's a far jaunt to the right side compared to what we're used to with just flat cartoony colors. Like it's, so yeah, I mean, I did, but I probably was a little, like I said, harsh because, if you've never played it before and you're going back now and you're used to, ray tracing and all the things that we're seeing with these high-end graphics cards now, it's not there.
No.
It's not there.
But for what they had, I feel like they pushed it as far as they could. Now, granted, I don't know what 2 and 3 look like on the PlayStation. I'm sure that they did even more with those games. But, again, it's an 8. Like room for improvement. I mean,
agreed.
I was happy to see all the, like, there was always different enemies, around each corner. Like, next thing you know, you've got these hunters that are following you and chasing you down the hallway.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you got gremlins hanging from the ceiling. Like, what the heck?
Those chimeras are pretty rough. And again, it's learning patterns, right? So you do better if you can get them to fall off of the ceiling. You definitely don't want to be stuck underneath one.
Right.
Like, and I don't know, because I watched some of your gameplay, but each of those enemies responds differently to different types of ammo and weapons.
Oh, okay.
So if you realize, which rounds work most effectively against which enemy, you can mop them up super duper fast. The Colt, for example, will tear through hunters in like 2 or 3 shots.
Sure.
You're not like, the handgun, forget it. Like you're dead, right? So it's those types of things. It's another level of the puzzle aspect that the game brings that unless you've really played it multiple times, you probably haven't figured out. So
I mean, let's just continue in through gameplay. I mean, that's really what we're talking about now. I mean, you're kind of given a choice. Do you want to fight or run?
Yes.
And it's funny because you kind of gave me a pep talk before we started.
Yep.
And you're like, conserve your ammo, run if you can, sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to run from everything.
Yeah.
And you can't. You can't run from everything. No. You can try.
Yeah.
You're not going to succeed.
Correct.
I found myself trying really hard to dodge as much as I could. And then it was like, well, I'm in this hallway way too much. Let's just wipe them out and I don't have to worry about it again.
Correct.
And next thing I know, I'm like, well, let's wipe them out in this room. Let's wipe them out in this room. By the time I finished with the mansion, the first half of the mansion, it was pretty much clear. Like, there was nothing left.
Nope. Yep.
So it was like, I kind of felt like, well, I could have just went in guns a-blazing.
Yep.
However, I would have missed way more than I probably should have from like the beginning.
Yep.
Like, as I learned the controls, as I learned, how to aim, better. But had I done that from the beginning, I'd have just been shooting all over the place. Where because I took my time, I got to learn everything. By the time I got through the mansion, the first half of it, I was comfortable in just shooting everything. And I'm like, I've got plenty of ammo. Just wipe them out.
So what you're probably not realizing, ammo in the game's limited, right? It doesn't respawn. It's not something that, like, once it's gone, it's gone. They kind of spread it out so you can find a little bit here, a little bit there, especially in easy mode. Like, if you need a herb or a plant, one's going to show up right about when you need one. So it's kind of cool that way. But by you running and not killing everything right out of the gate, there's certain triggers in the game. So, for example, let's say you would have killed all of the zombies on the first floor, right? As soon as you solve puzzle X, all of them respawn again. So it repopulates, everything all over again. So essentially, you've wasted all that initial ammo because you're going to have to go through and kill them again.
Right.
So by not killing them the first time, you conserved ammo so that when they respawn, which to you, they never did respawn because they've always been there, correct? You're good. Yeah. So... yeah, when I first played, back in the day, like your gut instinct is, oops, zombie, got to kill it, right? So the next thing you know, 4, 5, 6 shots of zombie, you're wiping them out in the hallways, and all of a sudden I'm low on ammo, and to your point of fight or flight, sometimes you don't get a choice because you are out of bullets.
Yep.
Like, you have no save ribbon, like your only option is to run and dodge and hopefully like limp your way to the next,
The hunters were a lot easier to dodge. I'm not really sure why. Like, you would think that the zombies are so slow.
Yep.
But I think it's because the zombies, like, grab you, where the hunters just, like, attack.
Yep.
So, I might take, a slash to the knee, but I'm still running.
Yep.
Where the zombies, they hold you, and you're locked in, you're going to take some damage, and then they push you back.
Yep.
So then you still have to fight them. You can't just move forward,
Yeah. They changed some of that, and were you playing the actual original edition, or were you playing Director's Cut? Or...
I was playing the original edition. Yeah.
I don't remember on mine. I think I was playing Director's Cut. I'd have to go back and check. I know the hunters have a decapitation move, so if you get...
They do, yes.
There's no coming back from that.
Yes.
If you're, like, anything below, like, a fine or a caution, like, you're done. Like, one and out.
Several times I had my head ripped off.
Yeah, so it's like...
brutal.
It is. It is.
And it's satisfying because, like, oh my gosh, this just happened, and then, here lies Jill, no head, just laid there, and it just comes up with the screen, you've died.
You died.
Like, ugh.
Yep.
Gross.
So yeah, dodging can definitely work to your advantage if you're doing it right.
Right.
And I've not watched a lot of them, but there are a lot of people who've played this game over and over and over again where they'll do speed runs and they can run through the whole game in less than, an hour. And there's also people who literally have tried to go through the game, and they've kind of adopted these challenges over the years where, like, they try to go through and replay the first game without taking any damage at all. Like, never being touched or bitten by any, that's a more slow roll. Like, you can take your time because you don't want to, that's hard. Like, trying to get through, like, all of that would be not something I would do, but, they've tried to come up with creative ways to keep the game fun to play.
So another gameplay mechanic that I struggled with quite a bit was the save ribbons.
Yeah.
From the beginning, coming from a background of, I play a lot of video games. I play a lot of different video games.
Yeah.
The key is save early, save often.
Always.
Yes. Save early, save often. Yeah. Save early, save often.
No, we're breaking that mold.
That.
No. Not an option in Resident Evil.
So it was fine. Like, at the beginning, I think I used way too many ribbons because about halfway through, I was struggling to the point where I had no ribbons And I kept dying in the same place over and over and over again. So it was like I'm replaying this section over and
Correct.
over and over and over. And it just got frustrating.
Yep.
Like, it would be great if I could get to this point and then save it because there's a typewriter here, but I can't save it because I have no ribbon and the game's not giving me any ribbon.
Yeah.
So
You backpedal to go find one, or
I had already picked them all up as far as I could tell.
I got
So
you.
it's like the only thing I could do is just power forward and
Yep.
hope that I find some.
And learn.
And I did eventually.
Sure.
But I kind of felt like I don't know. I don't know how it could have been better. I understand that they wanted it to be a challenge and they didn't want to just give you, it would have been too easy to just save it and then inch forward, go back, save it, inch forward, go back, save it. I understand, but I kind of felt like they were trying to push the amount of hours it takes to play the game.
I would take a different spin on that. I could see where you're saying. I think they were more, from my perspective anyway, creatively just trying to push the bounds of.
It was definitely a different
You
take.
can't save anytime you want to. You need a ribbon to save. So they were trying to do something a little bit different to kind of force your thought process. And I think it makes it more immersive, meaning, when you're hurting and you're crawling and you're trying to get out of the way, if you do not have an ink ribbon to be able to save your progress, like it heightens like you making the right moves because if you die, you are going back to wherever you last saved.
Right, yeah.
So it kind of adds to that survival horror aspect of the game.
Yeah.
In that there's now more pressure on you as the player that's actually controlling said character to make the right moves because it could cost you if you haven't saved.
Yeah.
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 And it sounds like it did.
It did, yeah.
In a few
It was
instances.
kind of hard. That was probably one of the biggest hardships that I had. About halfway through the game, you have to go through the garden to get to the underground, like under the garden. And you're in the mansion with all these hunters because I had already done the. But the next step is to go down and kill the big boss spider.
Right.
I don't know the names, but
He was actually just called Spider,
was
from
he?
what I remember.
So you get down in there and you fight the spider, and my first gameplay or my first attempt, I get down there. I know very well I have so much ammo and I have no saves.
Yep.
So I have to kill the spider one try. Went through, killed him, no problem. The spider, and the animation he starts dying. I'm like, well, it's a spider. The babies are going to pop out. So I leave the room, come back, spider respawned.
Yep.
I was angry.
You need to wait.
And yeah, that's exactly it.
Game needs to log the fact that you've beat him.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Whoops.
It didn't. The animation didn't fully finish of the spider dying.
Yep.
So because I went back into the room, I left the room too early. Went back in. He was full health, happy to kill me.
Yep.
And I had no healing items.
Whoops.
I think I took one acid spray to the face and was done.
Yeah.
And then I had to do everything over again. And the dogs are so difficult.
All right, so spoiler alert, we'll talk about some of these things, but it's only because I've played this game for so long, right? How many of the bosses did you actually kill? So Yawn, which is a snake.
Yeah, I killed the snake.
Did you kill him twice?
I did kill him twice.
All right, so then you got the spider.
Yeah.
Then you end up with Plant 42.
Yep, killed him.
And then you end up with Tyrant 1 and Tyrant 2.
Okay, yep.
Right? So did you kill all those?
Well, I mean, kill, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Right? You don't have to. And that's what they don't tell you. When you come across Yawn the first time, when he comes out from underneath his little hidey hole, as they call it, right? If you wait for him to attack and you run over to where the hidey hole's at, you can
pick up the item.
You can grab and you can walk right out of the room and progress right along your way. You don't need to fight him.
Yeah.
In the room where the spider's at, there's a door that's got some spider webs on it. So after you kill the spider,
you chop the door.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, you can stand in front of the door, and if you time it right, you can dodge out of the way, and when the spider throws acid at the webs, the spider will actually burn the webs off for you, and you can go through the door,
nice.
grab said item, and progress along your way.
The thing that infuriated me the most is after that segment with the spider, because I was in the mansion my last save. So I'm
Sure.
in the mansion, I have to make my way all the way through the mansion with the hunters.
Yep.
Make my way through the garden with the dogs, then make my way through the underground
Yep.
with the hunters also.
Yep.
and kill the spider over and over and over and over and dying in several different spots.
Yep.
When I finally killed the spider, inside the room with the spider's freaking ink ribbon, I was furious. I'm like, I could have walked into this room, grabbed an ink ribbon, saved it, done.
Yeah.
It would have been fine. I had no idea.
Absolutely.
It didn't like. I could see the sparkle in the corner on the opposite side, and I could tell that was the knife to be able to cut the web.
Right.
I didn't see the one on the opposite side, so like I had no idea. If I
but you know it's there now,
right? Exactly. Right? It ruins the fun, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's those things that you learn through playing, and again tying into the story, and But yeah, like even when I played years and years and years ago, like your inclination is boss battle, like gotta kill the boss. And most of the time after a boss battle, right, you get into another room and you can instantly save your progress, or it auto saves, or right. Nope. Like we're on to zombies, like or there's a hunter on the other side and I died. Crap, now I got to do all that all over again. Like you never knew what was coming around the next door, which added to that survival horror.
Now, I have to say some of that was nice because the first time through, I may have used way more ammo than I needed to. Second time through, I know exactly where the enemies are. Yeah. I know how to dodge them. I know where I'm supposed to be going instead of wandering around.
Yep.
So I'm conserving ammo the second time around. Yeah, I died the first time. It sucks. But the second time around, I'm doing it faster, doing it better. I'm conserving ammo. I'm conserving health. So it did help sometimes, but there was other times it was just frustrating. It just made me angry.
And two, from a gameplay perspective, the respawning of enemies after certain events are triggered, like I can remember again back in the day, it didn't happen so much now because I was anticipating it. I couldn't remember exactly where everything happened, obviously, but you're running down a hallway so many times and it's empty because you've cleared it and you've been it a million times.
You pop in there again and
boom,
all of a sudden,
and you're like, what the, like, and you get caught off guard, right? Or you'll be walking down a hallway and you've walked down that hallway 100 million times and all of a sudden, like the window and here comes 6 dogs and you're like, I hate these things, So there's tricks, you can walk past a lot of the dogs in the game if you walk slow and you kind of stay out of frame. Each of the characters has its own like AI and tracking system. So if they don't, what's the term? I think it was called aggro. Like if they don't, attack, you can just walk past them. You don't have to kill them. Again, conserving ammo and it's all tricks.
Yeah.
But we're in the gameplay section. We've like completely stepped over the biggest gameplay like issue in my opinion, and that's the tank controls. Like I watched your first video and I kind of gave you warning up front. Like when you start out, like this game will seriously aggravate the heck out of you. You are not going to like the controls at all.
It didn't take me too long. Like maybe about a half hour of figuring out. It really just took a few minutes to figure out what the buttons were even doing, because what I figured out is that you're controlling your character. You're not controlling the character from the screen's point of view. You're controlling the character from a top-down point of view. So up is always going to be forward, back is always going to be back, and then left and right. So like holding forward, even though the camera angle changes, my habit has been, if the camera angle changes and I'm moving forward and now the character's moving right, I need to hit right. But that doesn't work in this game. You have to constantly be holding forward.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to be turning or something.
Well, and depending on camera angle, forward changes.
Yeah.
So, like, and you see this right away, and they do it on purpose in the library where you get dropped off, or not the library, the dining hall, right off the left when you come in the mansion. You're running around the big table, and in one screen, you're running towards the camera, and as soon as you pass the camera, the same camera essentially pivots, and now you're running away from the camera. Like, you have to compensate for that when you run past the camera.
But you don't. Like, your brain wants to.
Correct.
But you don't need to. You're not supposed to.
Right.
Because you're always controlling Jill from Jill in my case, from a top-down perspective.
Yeah.
So, like, you're always supposed to hold forward, but your brain is like, well, forward has changed, but it hasn't.
Yes.
And that's the trick. And that took me some time to master, but once I figured it out, I was okay.
There is no running and shooting at the same time.
Yeah,
so for those of you people who like to be able to dual analog stick,
I would really like to have walked backwards and shot at the same time.
Oh yeah, it makes it super easy if you can walk away and fire.
Yeah.
Not happening in this game.
Nope.
So you have to, pick which areas you're going to kind of set up shop and fire from, and you have to pick those, strategic points, if you will. And yeah, it adds to the dynamic. I mean, I watched your video on the stream, and yeah, it was frustrating for me in the very beginning because I was like, oh no, like you went like a solid, I want to say half hour
without
40
running.
minutes. Well, no, without running, but you never learned how to fire. And I'm like, he's not once like armed a weapon or learned how to fire. I'm like, he's dead. He's dead. He's dead. He's dead. And you didn't die. Like you just like, nope, I'm going to moonwalk out of here. And I'm like, wait, no, you have to kill that zombie. You can't cheat and let Barry kill him for you. Like, nope, you did. And that's another one of those things. Like, there's just certain things. Like, do you remember when you were playing, you took the shotgun off the wall?
Yes. I found out afterwards.
Yeah, like, but that's a solvable puzzle. Like, you didn't do it the wrong way.
Right.
Like, that's where I was talking earlier in our conversation today. So each character has, like, path A, path B. Mm. You ended up making, I don't want to say a poor choice, but because that roof comes down on you because you didn't put the fake shotgun up on the wall, you solved the puzzle incorrectly. Your side character has to save you, but now that room is off limits to you. You can't go through that room anymore, so it causes your travel around the mansion to go longer because that room, has been sealed off because the ceiling came down. You can't go back through that door because it's locked.
So, had I put the fake gunshot or the broken shotgun on the wall, was there another exit through that room?
No.
So like the other room, there was nothing else in there. It was just like there was like your trap room and then like a study room, and there was nothing else in there. Like I grabbed everything in that room and backtracked out.
Correct.
And the ceiling came down, but like there was no other need to be in that room.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'd have to go back and look at gameplay,
Sure.
but those are the types of mechanics that, definitely come into play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's smart. I really enjoyed the puzzles. Honestly, that was my favorite part of this game.
Good.
Was enjoying the puzzles. Like, you pick up an item, you're like, what the heck is this for? Then you pick up another item and it's like, crap, now I have two items. I have no idea what they're used for.
Yep.
And then you start putting the pieces together and it's like, oh, all right. So, the shield, I pick up this shield and I put it in this spot, and I grab this shield and I put it in this spot. Oh, now I got to move this thing out of the way, and I can,
Yeah.
As you start building all these pieces together, it forms this puzzle that is spanning across the whole mansion, and that's what's fun.
With your inventory slots as a character, again, Joel's got more of them, so you can
Right.
kind of hold on to more items. It makes it a little easier. Inventory management definitely becomes, an issue because you have like, all right, I picked up a crank. What is this crank used for? Like, I don't know.
How long do I have to hold the crank? Am I going to find something later that I need the crank for?
Some of the game does a really good job. Like when you're done with a key, it'll tell you like you don't need this anymore.
Yep.
You can discard it and it instantly goes away, which is nice. You get it out of your inventory slot, you drop it, it's gone.
And you know that there's no need for it anymore.
Correct. Yeah, the keys don't go against your inventory slots though, so those are a little bit different.
They do for me.
No, I'm talking the 8 slots on the side. You don't have to arm a key. Like you can use a key, but you don't.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't go against what you can carry. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, like you have to. And there were times, 20, 30 years ago, where I was like, oh, I need the crank, but it's in the chest so I got to run back and find the closest chest to go pick it up, and then I got to run back, and then I got to, and I still like even this go round. There was some of that for me because I couldn't remember what I needed and when, and
Yeah, I did have a few times where it was like I have no idea what I'm supposed to do, and you start walking around, and it's like you kind of have to visually piece it together and be like, okay, specifically the garden area.
Yeah.
To get to the underground, you have to, you got to have the battery to use the lift.
Yep.
And then you have to turn off the water so that the waterfall stops, but you needed to have the waterfall. You needed to have the water flowing down there so that you could get across that platform to begin with.
Yep. There's an order of operations.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
So, you have to, once you piece it all together, it makes sense, but like figuring that out takes time.
Yep.
And, having played it now, to play it again, this exact version, to play it again would take me significantly less time.
Oh, yeah. You could cut your time in less than half.
I already know the puzzles. Like,
Yep.
even if I had to relearn all the controls, just to remember any of the puzzles would save me so much time.
Yeah.
Another one that really blocked me was the chemicals. So
the
where you have
V-Jolt?
to mix all the chemicals together.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find the chemicals. I had no idea where they were at. Like, I was in the room with the bottles. I picked up all the bottles, and somebody in the chat was like, no, you don't need the bottles yet. You don't need them in your inventory. You can leave them in there until you're ready.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, still need to find the chemicals. So I'm running around trying to find the chemicals. No idea. I randomly walked up to in the chemical room, imagine that, and I walk up there and it's like, oh, you found chemical 2, red or whatever.
Chemical 4, yep. Yeah. They're all in the same room.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know. I spent way too much time wandering around trying to figure it out.
That's brutal. Yeah, and the prescription for it's written on the wall, and it's talked about in one of the papers.
Yeah.
But did you mix it in the wrong order a couple times?
No, I mixed it perfect the first time through.
Because if you mix it wrong, you die.
Really?
It gives off a poison gas and you're dead.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so those are the types of things where it's like, if you didn't save and now you're trying to solve a puzzle,
so funny.
Boned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I went through it just fine. Like, it made, once I figured out what it was trying to tell me, it made perfect sense, and I just whipped it out. Like, I had to sit and be like, okay, 2 and 4 and then 6 and 6 plus 13 and mix them all together to make it right, but it didn't take long.
Yeah, and I'd have to go back. I mixed it up and I made it, but and I'd have to look, but I don't think you actually need it. So you spray it on the roots of plant 42,
right,
and it helps cut down the...
You still have to fight them, yeah.
Yes. So if I'm not mistaken, and I'd have to go back for all you people out there, I'm apologizing up front if I miss this, but I don't think you actually have to miss it and spray it on the roots. Like, I think you can go through the battle scene with him. It's just a much longer, more arduous, But if you can solve that puzzle and you can, get it sprayed on the roots, then that takes one cycle out of, what you're going through. And yeah.
I mean, it's funny because some of these alternate options never even crossed my mind when I was playing it. Like, no idea. It's like, here's a puzzle. I do the puzzle. Oh, well, I understand that I need to put this on the roots to kill the plant.
Right.
And then I try it. The plant's still not dead. I still have to fight it.
Correct.
It doesn't even cross my mind that maybe I don't even need this. Maybe I could just fight the plant.
Yeah, and there's some of those things like, the broken shotgun. Like, you'd already grabbed the shotgun off the wall. Like,
I didn't have a broken shotgun. I didn't even know that it existed.
Correct.
Until later in the game. And I'm like, what is this shotgun for?
And now you know that take the broken shotgun back, replace it with the working one, and then you don't go through the whole exercise of...
No Jill sandwiches, though. Like, that's the whole point.
I know. Man, you're teeing up right into the next section with the music and the sound effects.
I know. So what did you give it for a gameplay?
Again, I'm pretty high there, dude. I'm 10 out of 10.
I give it a 9.
Yeah. I mean, it's the puzzles, there's enough of them, like... They're spread all over, but yeah, you don't feel like you're kind of grinding through. Like, they're solvable if you know where you're going. If you don't, they're a few rooms away.
That's really all it is. Correct. If you're paying attention to what you're doing and what you're picking up, they're not that hard.
No.
And while I was streaming it, there was a lot of people in the chat, and everybody in the chat, thank you so much. You guys did so good because no one gave me any clues unless I specifically was like, okay, I need help. What am I doing? And that rarely happened. I much would rather figure it out on my own, and you guys did awesome. I really appreciate it. But it was also like conversation in the chat, so that makes it more interesting.
Absolutely. It was early in your gameplay. You ended up in the room with the piano, and that was one of my hard ones because I didn't realize that you could actually move that bookshelf out of the way.
Oh, yeah. Because who puts a bookshelf in front of a bookshelf?
Well, yeah, it was weird. Like, sometimes the way things are just laid out on screen, like, it's really hard to see what's going on.
Right, yeah.
So, this time, of course, I knew what was happening and what was going on, but that was one of the harder puzzles for me back in the day to solve. And it's an early puzzle, but I can remember really struggling with trying to figure out how to make all that work.
Yeah.
And I was laughing because you grabbed the notes. You're like, oh, I'm going over the piano. And then you walked right up to the piano. And I was so envious because I'm like, I spent so much time trying to figure that out. And then you were like, after 2 minutes, you were like, nope, I guess that doesn't work. And you bailed. And I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, well, I didn't. Okay, so
it's the menu system.
I don't know the menu system.
Agreed. Like, it wasn't your fault. And that's part of the problem that I had when I played 20 years ago is you have to understand that, like,
you have to go into the menu, you got to find the notes, you got to say use, but you have to be in the right spot.
Correct.
If you're not in the perfect spot, then it's not going to work.
Correct. Or even with, inventory control. There were a few
Right.
times you were playing earlier and you're like, can I just combine these things? And I'm like, yes. Like you go into the menu and you pick combine and,
Yeah.
you don't know. But no, and then you finally did figure it out and you were like, oh, hey. Like, and you freed up, 3 inventory slots because now your bullets in one. Like
Right.
if the game did that automatically, it would make it a lot easier.
It does do that automatically if it's in your inventory currently. So like your ammo. You pick up a clip, you already have a clip, it combines 2 clips together.
Right.
But if you have stored your clips in the box
Yeah.
and you pick up another clip, you have to manually combine those together. Otherwise,
Yep.
you have 2 clips, you
Correct.
know? And it's interesting. It's an interesting take.
Did you always let your character auto reload? So when you would run out of ammo, were you letting your character auto reload?
Not always. Once I figured out that it was a lot quicker to reload manually,
Yeah.
then I was doing it. It got to the point where I was reloading after each room. So like, as if I unloaded any bullets, I was reloading immediately after I was done because who knows what's in the next door.
Correct.
So yeah, to that effect, yeah, I was reloading manually, but from the beginning, it was a lot of auto reload, and here I'm like, boom, boom, boom. Jill, hurry!
And then you gotta wait for that animation to fire through.
Exactly.
You're dead. Like, yep.
And it's longer on the shotgun, obviously.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really did. The gameplay, the movement was clunky, and that was probably the worst of it. Like, if the movement was a little bit better, and they did this better on the HD remaster where you can do like a quick turnaround, and they helped a little bit, though they kept true to the original. But, a few of those little things could have helped a lot. But, I mean, back then, they didn't really know how to... I don't know. I don't know if it's a very direct decision on how to move the character, or if it was, that they didn't really know. It was too early in the 3D gaming to know how are we going to control this character in all these different camera angles.
Correct. And they've addressed that with the other games, and that's why you'll see a lot of flack in the Resident Evil community, because with 4, they moved the camera. It wasn't like it was in 2 and 3, so you get a different perspective, and it changes how you interpret how that game's played. So a lot of true diehard Resident Evil fans are, really adamant about where that camera's at. Like, I don't want it over my shoulder. Like, I want fixed. I want like that traditional Resident Evil 1 gameplay style, right? So they definitely were experimenting a lot with that in other games, and they've continued to, play around with that. And there's definitely people who prefer one method or the other, but those dynamics definitely factor into gameplay. And as I was watching your first stream, and you were struggling with the controls, it was probably, I don't know, a solid half hour, 40 minutes. And then you'd even commented, you're like, well, this ain't so bad. Like, I figured it out, and, it's not a steep learning curve. You learn it pretty quick or you die, but you overcome it pretty fast, and I think it's negligible as far as gameplay goes.
It makes it difficult when you're trying to dodge something because the movements are very clunky. I mean, it's tank controls. Like if you stop and you start trying to turn, you're turning one pixel at a time.
Yep.
So that's tough when you have a zombie chewing on your neck.
Correct.
And panic mode doesn't help at all. Every single time that I had a panic mode, I always accidentally loop back around and I'm just embracing the zombie.
Yeah.
And, it happened far too many times.
Sure.
Far too many times. But, again, it's one of those things that you just keep calm, just keep going.
Yep.
I was yelling at Jill a lot because... Jill can see. She can see where she's going. Why the heck is she running into this pillar?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I really enjoyed the gameplay part of it. Like, there wasn't anything that... Again, the tank controls maybe the worst.
Sure.
And the saving was, again... But
if you play on hard, that becomes a variable that they change. So the number of ink ribbons...
Is there a hard mode? How do you play on hard?
So that
I mean,
was,
obviously Chris would be a hard mode.
no,
but...
right. So that was added in director's cut.
okay.
So they gave some options there. If I'm not mistaken, that was in director's
that makes
cut.
sense.
Yeah. So if you go hard, it was hard or hardcore, or they limit, like, I think it's 5-6 ink ribbons throughout the whole game. Like, so it's another variable that they use to make the game more difficult.
Right.
Which, again, not my cup of tea. Like, I never play on hard. Like, I don't want to be dying constantly.
Right.
I'm not a pro when it comes to play. I enjoy playing the game. I don't enjoy being stressed playing the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, another dynamic that they use to make the difficulty level
I think I
harder.
ended with like 22 saves or something like that.
I don't remember where mine was. Probably a little less than that because I'd played before, so I knew where I was going.
Well, I think if I'd have conserved a little better in the beginning, I was saving way too much in the beginning.
Sure.
I think if I conserved a little bit better in the beginning, the rest of the game would have been a lot better.
Yeah, you have, when you go to save, they give you like, I think 5 or 6 save slots too. And initially out of the gate, you were like overwriting the same save every time. And I did that, back in the day. It can be really good, but it can also like trash you. Because if you overwrote a really good save.
I always saved on the same save file.
So you want to pick different ones. And the reason is like, let's say the save file that you had before, you were at like perfect health. Right? You were a little farther back in gameplay, but perfect health. You make it farther along, but you just beat a boss and your health level is at a caution and you overwrite that save slot. Now every time you start, you're starting back with a health level of caution. Right. Like there's no way of going back, even if you wanted to undo it, like you have to grind through it.
Right.
If you'd have picked a different save slot, you could have opted to go back to your previous save with better health
and
and
through it again.
Right. So you have to be careful with that too. That's another dynamic that it's like, why do I have 6 save slots here? Why doesn't it just overwrite the same?
All the games, all the PlayStation games had multiple save slots.
Correct.
Like that was a typical thing. So for me,
Yep.
it was a no-brainer. Like, I don't need multiple save slots. I'm not going to go back.
There were times,
just keep moving forward.
Yeah, 20 years ago where I just overwrite the same save slot, and then it was like I'd start up and I'm like dun 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 dun. Dun. I'm like, oh man, my health is in really bad shape because I just beat the boss, and all right, this is going to be not good.
Yeah.
So especially if you were next to a slot and you're like marginally alive and you saved, like now you could be in a stuck state of I'm outside a room full of hunters and
I can't move forward.
I got to start the game all over again. Like, whoops. So use multiple save slots.
Luckily, I didn't come into that problem.
No, you did really well. Yeah, you did great. You did way better than I did the first time playing through 30 years ago.
I played a lot of video games.
Yeah. No, there's truth in that, which, in 96 I hadn't.
Right.
So
I would have been in way worse shape had I played this as a kid.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have read anything. I would have just gone by the seat of my pants, just like, well, I don't know what I'm doing now,
I'm with you.
All right, let's talk about the music.
Yes.
I gave it a 10 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
I did.
All right, so I'm a little lower. I'm at a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
And I went there because I combine music and sound effects in the same.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The some of the sound effects in this game have a majority of the voice animation super cheesy. Like, when Joel gets the lockpick from Barry, he's like, "You, the master of lockpicking."
Right,
like, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, even when I was a kid, I'm like, what is this?
It's so cringy.
Oh.
The voice acting is so cringy, but it's so 90s. It's so 90s, and it was charming to me.
Yep.
Like, it was cheesy and it was cringy, but like, I thought that was part of the fun. And, all the music was amazing.
Yeah.
All the way through the game. I loved every little clip of sound music-wise that they threw at me.
Yep.
Every now and then you go into like a safe room and it had this very peaceful music to it. Or, you go into an area that you've never been before and it's like this creepy, not so much music as it is just like a bunch of sounds thrown at you. It really set the mood.
Well, you could eventually get to the point to where when you would go through a door, you may not have remembered where it was taking you, but as soon as the music started playing, you're like, oh, I'm in the dining hall, or I'm in the, like, you start to subconsciously connect those dots.
Right.
So, yeah, and that's why I was at a 7. Like, the scores are really good, the music's really good, similar to, horror genre and horror films, like they do a really good job of letting the music and the soundtrack like affect, how you were playing. Like everything in the hall is all cool, and then the glass breaks, and dun, 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 and you're like, all right, now like crap just got real fast. Like, so it adds to, the scare factor, if you will, when you're playing.
There was some spots that the music was way creepier than it needed to be. The basement, specifically the basement of the mansion, it's like this creepy music, and there's like, it's not that creepy down there.
No, there's a few sharks, you solve a puzzle, and there's no water anymore. Like, there's not a lot going on down there. Yep, I'm with you.
I don't know, I loved all the sound effects too. The zombies sounded something going along with how the zombies sounded. Every enemy had its own distinct sound.
Mm-hmm.
So when you walk into a room, even though you can't see them, if you just sit for a minute, you can tell exactly what's in the room.
Correct.
You can tell if it's spiders, or if it's, the dogs, or if it's a zombie sliding around.
Yeah.
So that much, I liked how I could go into a room and be like, is there anything here? Should I be nervous?
Did you ever have any luck, like, and maybe you didn't, I don't know, I didn't watch all of your gameplay footage, but like firing blindly off screen when you couldn't see what was in front of you and taking anything out? Where you were able to, because you can, like if you're facing down a hallway and you can't see what's down there, but you can hear it, you can fire off a couple of shots and drop a zombie.
I think that the bullets affected anything off screen.
They do.
Because every time I fired off screen, I didn't hit a thing.
Yeah.
Or I couldn't tell I hit a thing.
Sure.
Like a lot of it was mainly the dogs that gave me the most grief. And if I could hear the dog and I know about where it's at, I would fire in that direction and I would never hit it.
You got to wait till they get almost up on you, and you have to be pointed down. Shotgun, tears them up pretty quick, but shotgun ammo is a premium.
That's exactly it.
Handgun's a way to deal with the dogs, but, again,
and
if you wait till they get...
crazy.
They are.
And they can, they chain you too. So like if there's two of them, like one will attack you, and while you're trying to recover, the second one attacks you, and then you try to recover and the first one attacks. It's like you're dead before you know it. So if you're not taking them out quickly,
correct.
And that was the biggest problem with going between the mansion and the underground. That's why I had to do that section so many times, because the dogs. Stupid dogs.
Yep.
Yeah.
But no, I thought the music was great.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
Very, very good.
Food for thought. They did change that up in previous releases. So if you go and you play like director's cut, and there's YouTube videos on all this, but they took out some of the good sound effects and they replaced them with really crappy ones.
Oh, that's too
and
bad.
there's long, arduous stories as to why they did it. But yeah, there's a lot of people that don't like director's cut because of some of the crappy audio that got replaced, and a lot of people are like, why would you take like excellent music out of a game and replace it with subpar scores for so those types of things have happened as the gameplay goes along. But yeah, for the most part it's great.
Yeah, I didn't have any problems with it. What was your biggest problem with the... Oh, right. You told me some of the sound effects were...
Yeah, and, I mean, it's not really... I guess it probably plays more into gameplay, but, like, you get to the point where you open a door and it's like, creak, and you're waiting, and then creak, and there's this over and over and over again. But
and the dogs howling in the background over and over and over and over again. Yeah.
But no, I mean, it was good. I mean, it was well done. Again, it's not that, spritey, repeated, Yeah, the audio tracks do repeat, but not to the point to where, like, comparing it to a Nintendo title where you obviously notice the track is looped. You know, like, it's just...
I really enjoyed some of the rooms that just had no sound. It added to the atmosphere.
But even in the rooms that had no sound, there was, because you were hearing the effects of your feet against the floor. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so overall...
I'm in a 9 out of 10.
Same.
Okay, good.
I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I didn't expect I would enjoy it as much as I did.
Good.
I just got done playing Metal Gear Solid, and I struggled through that game to no end. Like, it's just so much struggling.
To the point where you didn't like it?
Yeah. I think by the end I was okay with it, but there was a lot that I was not happy with. Where when I started playing this game, I had that mindset of, oh no, this is going to be so much the same because it's the same era, it's the same like gameplay concept where you're shooting enemies, you know, with this clunky mechanic, and it wasn't that way. Like, it wasn't nearly like the enemies weren't nearly as difficult, mainly because they didn't fire at me.
Right.
But you know, there wasn't any like cheap shots. Like when I died, it was me. Like, yeah, the dogs kind of they would do their thing, but I mean, still, I put myself in that situation.
Sure.
Not any time did I think, okay, the game is out to get me. It was if there was a mistake made, it was my mistake. I fully could take the blame for it. It wasn't the gameplay that screwed me up.
Makes sense.
So yeah, the puzzles. I really, really enjoyed the puzzles.
Would you play it again? Now that you know the puzzles, is there anything that would...
I think I would continue playing the HD remaster of the game. This game specifically, I don't know. I think I would have to take a bunch of time, like maybe a couple years to kind of forget some of it.
Sure. To
want to experience it again.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think I would. And I think I would try Chris's side too, just to see, you know, now that I know the gameplay mechanics and I understand the puzzles, maybe making it a little more difficult would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would encourage that you move forward in the series. So if you're having, you know, that urge to play Resident Evil again, start with 2 and then 3, and, you know, you get more of the storyline, and, you know, 2 and 3 are just as good as 1, in my opinion. And, you know, yeah, I mean, even now coming back to, you know, review this, like, it did take me a while. Like, I thought, no big deal. I'll just mop through this. And man, I got like halfway through the game and I'm like, oh, where's that key? Like, what? And I know I need, you know.
Yep.
And I didn't want to cheat and just go look up where I needed to go. Like, that's not what the spirit of this is all about. So, you know, you grind through and, oh, yeah. Right? I got to do this or I got to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It did. It took me a while going through this. I wasn't able to just tear through it like I thought I was going to. So, yeah, you'll forget where all the puzzles are at.
Yeah, and I like that.
Yeah.
I did pick up I've kind of hinted at it, but I did pick up the HD remaster, and I played about, I don't know, a little less than half of the game. I got through most of the mansion before you head to the, like, yard house or whatever, the like shed or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, the remaster changed a lot of the original game. So, like, there's completely different puzzles, there's completely different areas of the house.
Yep.
I mean, the graphics are obviously better.
Oh, way better.
Obviously, we've got, I don't know, 2002. So, I mean, there's, you know, quite a bit of time in between to upscale it and make it look a lot better.
Yeah.
And it does. The zombies are a little bit different because if they are dead, they will sit there until you burn them. And if you do not burn them, they come back to life.
Correct.
So that's challenging.
You can stab them as well. Because, again, your oil and your lighter is another limited resource to make it harder. But, yeah, that is something that they added in as a dynamic in that game to make it, again, a little bit more challenging. So, yeah, and that's where you get into the verbiage of, you know, was this a remake or is this an HD remaster, or, like, is it the same game? Is it a different game? And, you know, I'll give Capcom credit, like, if they remake it and they move puzzles around, like, they call it a remake, you know, and they know going into it, like, we're going to change things, right?
It's great, I think, for the people who they've grown up with the original Resident Evil. They know this game like the back of their hand. And then they play this game and things are moved around. The puzzles are different. It makes you think. It makes you rethink the puzzles over again because things aren't in the same spot.
You're in the same mansion, but you're not in the same mansion.
Exactly.
It's different enough to where it's a new game, but not different enough to where you're like, what is this?
Right.
It doesn't
it's
detract.
Very familiar, but it's different.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's the mark that you're going for on a remake, is to make it, you know,
You
good
still
enough,
want
but
people
not
to play it.
Correct.
And not just breeze through it because they've played it a million times.
I can remember getting the remake on the GameCube when it came out, just purely to see the graphical changes that were made. And yeah, I mean, it was, that for me was the start of, us turning into wanting games to be graphically more beautiful.
Right.
And, I'm like, I'll buy it. I already played it, but, I'm a Resident Evil fan. And then you get in and you're like, wait a minute, there's supposed to be a door here. Like, there's no door. Like, wait a minute, this is a new game. Like, so, I mean, it was very cool to be able to go through but they're different games. They're not
they really are.
Really,
yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
From what I played of the HD remake, I wasn't as happy with it as the original. Like, there was something about the original that just was more fun. I don't know if it was the introduction to it, because, now I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for this game. So playing it again on the GameCube, it looks prettier, but there was just something about it that wasn't as fulfilling as the original was. Even though I played it back to back, literally.
Yeah. You play a lot of games, on this channel. You review a lot of stuff. If you really did enjoy playing this, I'm strongly going to push, and I'll be texting you 3 times a week. Like, have you started Resident Evil 2 yet?
Yeah, right.
Because for me, 2 picks right up where 1 left off. New game, new characters, better graphics. We're trying to fix the controls. 3, even better. It just keeps, 4 came out on the GameCube. They took the track. They moved the camera angle. 4 actually released on the Wii, I think a year and a half later, because they wanted to be able to take advantage of the Wii motion controls.
Sure.
Some people argue that Resident Evil 4 for the Wii is by far the best game that was ever made in the series because of those controls.
Yep.
For me, I didn't want to wait a year and a half for them to figure out how to work motion controls in a game that already existed. So, it's those types of things. 5, 6, again, different veins. They're doing different stuff. But if you definitely liked 1, I would argue that if we were to review 2 and 3, you're going to feel more of what you felt in 1 and go, okay, it's familiar, but this is a complete new story. This is different scenario. Some of those levels have us outside for a majority of, the game. We're not necessarily, in a mansion. So yeah, I don't know, with 2, they took some really creative liberties of, it's a multi-disc game. You can do the player select, but now, depending on which disc you put in, you start with, that was never an option before. And it's a different gameplay. There's some really cool stuff that Capcom did when they started to do 2 and 3 and to move the series and the franchise forward that, as a kid, 20 years ago, it's like, what? I can completely change the way this game plays by starting with a different disc. Mind blown.
It still is revolutionary.
Yeah.
It's just a different way to play a game. Even Resident Evil 1, you have your character selection, but then you start adding in the dynamics of what that choice is, how the game changes with that one simple choice, and how the ink ribbon, how you got to manage that and manage your ammo, and it's just different. It's completely different from anything I've ever played. So
as a guy who's now in his 40s, that's why you're starting to see these games come back. Especially with the PS4. I mean, you and I were talking about it before we started, but, Resident Evil 3 just announced that it's coming out for the PS4 April 3rd of 2020, less than 3-4 months away, right? They just remade
Resident Evil
2 right, last year in January. So, Capcom, Sony, they're taking a step back and they're saying, these are the ways we would have made this game 20 years ago if we'd have had, 12 teraflops of CPU power and ray shading and all this other stuff that, now we can actually experience that mansion, in all of its glory with high def. As a guy in his 40s, I'm on, take my money. I'll replay it again and again. They're remastering them, so they're changing the puzzles to make them new, but yet... here's the game that we wish we could have made for you 30 years ago. And it's kind of cool, like from a developer's perspective, as a guy who nerds out on, how all that's done. I'm sure the guys and the gals that were on the development teams for Resident Evil 1 30 years ago, this is what they were delivering. It was mind-blowing for 96 for them to be able to do the stuff that they were doing, and it's what they wanted to try to achieve, and I think they would be proud of the product they put forward. But to be able to go back and to redo it, like 30 years later, like how cool is that?
To see the back-to-back difference between Resident Evil 1 and the Resident Evil remake. I was in the same mansion. It was a little bit moodier. Things were a little bit different. But like when I played Resident Evil 1, that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it's just the filter that I can put on some of these old games. Like I can see there's enough direction there that I can see the HD part of it. Like playing the HD remake, I'm like, yeah, but that's why it's the same thing to me. Like, it looks really pretty, but like when I was playing the first one, this is kind of how it looked like anyway.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but I feel like you get it.
I do. I understand what you're saying. Your brain is stitching in and your brain is going, wow, a carpet. Like you're not looking at that going 9 square pixels that kind of look like a carpet.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in the new one, it's obvious that, it's an HD carpet. The re-render, it's a much darker game.
It is, yeah.
Like, I don't mean darker from,
it's
gorier. Like,
darker.
visually, they use lighting controls because now they have that ability to shade, to put a zombie out of reach to where it's in the dark. You can hear it, but you can't. And now it's a different aspect. You're like, oh man.
That was something that I found interesting too in the remake is that because the zombies come back, there's this zombie that's way down the hallway. You can see him. He's hanging out in the light. You can just barely see him. You don't have to kill him.
Yeah.
But if you do, you can't see his body sitting there on the floor.
No.
So if you don't go and blow up that body, you're hosed in, a couple minutes.
Right. Yep.
So I thought that was cool. Clever.
Yeah, continuing to take liberties with gameplay mechanics while, still staying true to the franchise. And, I mean, they've made frickin', dare I say, billions, on this, series. Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you had a good time playing it.
Yeah, thank you for pushing me to play this game.
Yeah, no, it's very, very popular. It's definitely one in my arsenal
I just picked up the long box copy at a yard sale. I can't remember now how much I paid for it, but it was probably just a couple bucks.
I hate you.
It happens far too often.
I'm kidding, man. They're just really hard to find, like from a collector's perspective. And I mean, it's got some wear and tear, but it's in really good condition. Most of those long boxes are not.
I know. I have a few that
held
are
up well.
falling apart.
Yeah, they didn't make them all that long. Like that was Sony's initial foray into it, and it was like, wait a minute, like we can cut game production costs by not overprinting plastic. What are we doing?
But yeah, I mean, when I picked this up, I'm like, it's cool, but I'm not a fan. And that's when you reach out and you're like, you got to play this.
Yeah.
If you haven't played it, you got to play it. I'm really happy you did, and I am going to continue playing some Resident Evil. I'm planning on playing Resident Evil 4 actually next month.
Yeah, good.
So that's going to be...
plenty of time to get 2 and 3 in before you get to 4.
It's good to know that each game is kind of its own thing. So like, they kind of play off of each other from like concept point of views, but like each one is its own story. So there is no like right or wrong, set way to play them.
Correct. There will be, like, if you were to play them in order, I will say things will make a little bit more sense, but not to the point where it would definitely detract from, and you're going, what? Like, no, it's not going to keep you from playing the game or being successful. But yeah, to be able to play them in order, you kind of get,
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, was there any point, and I'm just curious, like, did you get scared at all playing the game? Like, there was no...
Video games don't scare me.
Interesting. Because I know, like, 1 wasn't that bad for me. Like, 2 got really bad. Like, I would not, still won't, like, to this day, play 2 in the dark or if it's raining outside. Like, they bring a lot more, like, jump scares into the game. Yeah. And, like, you try to open a door, there's nothing there. I try to open the door, there's nothing there. You open the door, and boom, like, zombies coming through, dogs coming through. Like, you're falling through floors, and sound effects are going. Like, it's just... like that whole dun, 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 all the time. Like it just, I can't like, I don't like playing the games in the dark.
I think for me, horror video games are different because I expect to die. Like, I know it's inevitable.
Yeah.
The video game is designed to kill my character.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. Where when I'm watching like a horror movie, I portray myself so much on the main character that like their hardships are my hardships and they're not supposed to die.
Sure,
so like
sure.
it makes me way more anxious and way more like scared in a movie scenario.
I got you.
But like in a video game, I just
Reset.
I mean, it's an inevitable. I saved it. I'll die, and when I die, and not to say that there aren't like jump scares. When I played the HD remake, there were a few times that zombies are coming in the windows, like you know,
Okay.
I panic more than scared.
Sure.
But I think that was the worst of it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, they try to continue to play on that a little farther in the series, you know. Yeah, when I first played 4 the first time, I think I was decapitated within like the first 30 seconds of the game.
Yep.
And it was dark outside, and I was like, yep, nope, power off. I'm like, I'll play that tomorrow. I'm not trying this anymore tonight. Like, you know.
Yeah. I played...
you're on a like dirt road.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, the wind's blowing, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and like, all right, this did not start out well. And you're just walking, and it's like, all of a sudden the music's like, da-da, da-da.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, I haven't done anything. I'm just walking. Da-da, da-da, da-da.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, what is happening? Like, I'm walking. And then, like, you see this mansion off in the distance. And I'm like, dun 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 dun. And I'm like, I'm looking around. I'm like, I best get to running, you know? Yeah, that did not work out well for
That's
me, my
funny.
friend. Yeah, so it's cool. Like, I'm not much for horror movies. I definitely like the horror genre, the survival horror genre. Resident Evil is the kingpin in that whole, like, it's where it started. You know, a lot of people have tried to. A lot of people have tried, and again, you know, out of laughter's sake. Have you ever played Dino Crisis?
Mm-mm.
All right, so when we get done recording, go to your collection, pull out Dino Crisis, slap it in, and play like the first 5 minutes. Right? It's like Resident Evil with dinosaurs instead. Character mappings, exactly the same. Like level layouts, graphics, like it's almost like Capcom like took another stab, and I think Capcom did. Man, I'm really putting my street cred on the line by going out here. I'm pretty sure Capcom did Dino Crisis. Great game. Like if you liked Resident Evil, you probably would really like
a reskin of Resident Evil.
Pretty much. Yeah. Like you've got puzzles. You're fighting dinosaurs instead of zombies. Like you're playing as different characters, different storyline. But if you like that puzzle solving like dynamic, you'd really like Dino Crisis. They made Dino Crisis 2, Dino Crisis 3. It didn't work out as well as Dino Crisis 1.
They don't have many out there now.
No.
Not like Resident Evil blew up.
No. They tried, you know, to kind of capture what lightning they had in a bottle, and they've tried to repurpose it, and other companies have tried too, you know, to kind of, but nothing has ever really captured what you just started. Like it just it you know. So to your point, like you kind of replayed what you've already played. It's not the same anymore because you've kind of ripped the Band-Aid off already. So yeah, like I said, I'm glad you really enjoyed it. It's one of my it's really high for me and all-time favorite games that, you know, I beat.
Good. Well, I had a great time. I really did. My total score was a 41 out of 50. What'd you end up with?
43. I'm 2 points higher. And I'm, you know, 30 years into the franchise, so, you know.
Yeah. That's a 84 out of 100, so that's a B. It's, you know, it's a strong B.
Man, it's just tough to get. Out of curiosity, like, have you graded any games that ended up in the 90 plus?
Yes.
What can you throw one off the top of your head that would have ended up
Super
that high?
Metroid was an A.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, it's definitely you know, worthy of an A.
It's tough playing these games that are so close to your childhood and playing them from a critical point of view. I have Final Fantasy VII coming up soon.
Sure.
I'm going to start playing that, and I have to grade it from a critical point of view, and I'm nervous at what I'm going to score it at.
Well, I know when we were on episode 16 and we talked about, you know, Super Mario 64, like, that was one of my favorite games for the console, and when it all came out in the wash, and it was like a C.
Yeah,
and I'm like, yikes! Like, this game is way better than that, but it's kind of not.
It's nostalgia.
Like, some of it is. You know, you can't, you know, remap that when you break it down by story, like Mario games, they lack its story. Like, princesses. Yeah. I digress. But, you know, like it's tough. So, yeah, I would have liked to have seen it in the A, but, you know, It's a great game. Like if you
only
haven't,
get better from here. I mean,
yeah. If you haven't played Resident Evil, like, do it. Did you have any problems with your game skipping on the hardware? How did you play it? Out of curiosity.
I played it with the disc, and we can talk more about it afterwards. But
sure, that's just a problem. People playing it nowadays, like getting a unit that can read the CD media without it skipping. This game would be horrible to play if the audio cut sequences were skipping and you had a problem on a bad console. So.
I noticed that the intro was very skippy. And that's just like the Capcom, like, whoa, that it does.
Yeah.
And that was very...
well, that's the chunk of disc that gets read the first time every time.
Yeah,
like,
I know, right?
It's what gets beat up the worst, right?
So, I mean, that definitely was noticeable, but, I mean, it didn't hinder the game any.
Yeah, good. Yeah, definitely would recommend if you haven't played Resident Evil before that you check it out.
Yeah, and there's so many different versions out there that I'm sure you can get your hands on something for a reasonable price. I mean, the HD remaster on the GameCube is only like $15.
Can't beat that.
You
can buy a PlayStation Classic for $15 and get it for free.
That's true, yeah.
Right?
That is true.
They're dang near giving those things away these days.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, although I think the version that's on the PlayStation Classic is actually the European version.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I don't know what the difference is.
They didn't bother to localize any of the ROMs, so they're like even in the NTSC versions for the US, they just put the European ROMs on there. Yeah. So for a diehard Resident Evil fan like myself, I was sorely disappointed. I'm like, I want what I played. I don't want. There were differences in the games, believe it or not. Yeah, and they're minor, but the way that the characters go down and which weapons and
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you again for joining me. I really had a good time.
Happy to do this anytime, man.
Yeah, well, I might hit you up on that.
Please do. I don't get a game enough, and it's always a good excuse when you're like, "Hey, you want to review?" Yes, please. Like,
yeah, it's
now I got to squirrel away some game time, and
that's it. It's nice to set that aside and say, okay, we're playing this to completion.
Yep.
It's far too easy to just throw in a game and play, the first hour or so and then let it go to the wayside like I was doing before I started the podcast. And that's what's been so great. Like, I'm playing these games all the way through and I'm seeing them, I'm seeing so many different stories and so many different, ways of gameplay, and it's awesome.
Well, even with this one, and I hate to admit this, I mean, I beat it years and years and years ago, but I couldn't remember who the last boss was.
Yeah.
Going in at the end, I'm like, who am I? Like, I'm a huge fan of 2, so a lot of my Resident Evil lineage is 2 in the storyline in my head, because that was my favorite game, the one I played the most. So even going into this one, I'm like, I didn't know, until I got to that cutscene, and right. All right, now I remember, right? So it was really cool kind of being able to peek under that curtain again after 30-some years, and it was fresh.
Yeah.
Like I said, I struggled to get through it. Like I thought, no brainer. I'm a Resident Evil fan. I've done this before. Not, man, wow, okay. Yeah. All right, well, give me another day. I thought I was going to be done this weekend, but I'm going to need Monday, you know? So.
No, I had the same problem. I mean, I was playing it all weekend, and then Monday came, and I'm like, I'm still not done. Like, I have to finish this thing today so that we have plenty of time to schedule a review.
Yeah.
And then I get a hold of you, and you're like, I'm still not done yet. And I'm like, that's fine.
All right, good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody who's listening and watching. I do appreciate it. The next podcast episode is going to be January 1st, 2020, and that is going to be Pokemon Sword and Shield. So if you guys are a fan of the Pokemon games, make sure you check it out. If not, it's A-okay. We will be playing more Resident Evil games very soon and reviewing those. And yeah. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.